friends, it's Teresa and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a new series on my channel, which is what I would like to call Writing Gone Wrong. I know it sounds kind of mean, but also there was nothing else I could really think of that could replace how catchy it is. But basically this is where I kind of consume some kind of media, either it's a TV show, movie, book, whatever you have, and I analyze it based on what the show is doing well, what it's doing wrong, from a completely writing perspective. I'm basically going to split it into 3 different parts: what I think was really strong with the show, what I think was really weak with the show, and how they could have adjusted it, like purely from a writing perspective, to make it stronger or at least a little less blah, blah, blah. The first show that I'm going to be discussing is actually one that has caused quite a bit of controversy over the past few months, primarily because of its incorrect marketing, and that is Fate: The Winx Saga, which is a Netflix TV show that is supposed to be, according to the description, a live-action reboot of the original Winx Club animated series. Again, this was completely the fault of whoever decided to write the description, because they were writing on the coattails of the nostalgia, considering they also worked with the actual studio who helped with it, which is the Rainbow Studio in Italy, I believe. But they rode on the idea of nostalgia and then was surprised when everyone was like, the fuck is this? But let's just get into it. So this series has 6 episodes, each episode about like maybe 40 minutes to an hour long, and it follows 16-year-old Bloom as she is taken from her home in California to realize and control her powers as a fairy, as she is not exactly what she seems. On the undercurrent of this, there is also these monstrous things called the Burned Ones, who have arisen from their kind of like hidey holes. And these guys kind of hunt without caring who the object of their hunt is, and with a single scratch can infect a person and create more and more of these monsters as a form of multiplying. Now, as Bloom attends this school, she realizes that she's not she's an interesting specimen, to say the least, and finds out that there's more to her own history that she's not aware of that actually might tie her in with the Burned Ones that are currently haunting the school. Now, I'm going to address the elephant in this room. I will not be comparing it to the original Winx Club saga. I think, I mean I could. There's a really kind of there are a couple of glaring things that like I have a problem in terms of what the show did creatively to separate itself from the TV show, which I can create a separate video on just to relieve myself of this pain. But overall, I'll be discussing this show purely based on the writing and its build-up and how it could be better. If y'all want me to create a video talking about the differences between the live action and the animated show, or at least the ones that really kind of dug under my skin, let me know in the comments and I'll be more than happy to do that. But as of right now, this is what we're doing. So the first part of this is what was actually strong, and I thought the world building was actually pretty strong. I thought that we got to see the bad guy really quickly in terms of what he'll bring to the table and how it'll shake up the world as they know it, or at least the world that everyone else knows it. I liked the aspect of the give and takes of magic and the fact that it is heavily based on emotion and not so much like, you know, an Expelliarmus moment where it's like positive emotion. But the emotions that you put out there are the ones that are help your magic kind of grow and flourish, or will hinder you in the long run and eventually cause accidents and become really unstable, and thus making you as a person really unstable as well. I think another strong part was the mystery behind Bloom. Even in the animated show, she was not who she thought she was, so it was really nice to tie that back in. But I think the mystery, turning it a little bit darker and implying that she was part of a civilization that might have been destroyed for reasons kind of unknown to literally everyone, as well as the fact that she is kind of a little darker herself, having caused accidents because she did not know how to control her magic, was an interesting point to add, and I think it does add a bit of depth to her character. I also really like the mystery with the concept of ancient magic. It is pretty stated early on, like I think in the first episode, by the headmistress of the school, that they are no longer able to do transformative magic, which I'm still a little foggy on what the concept of transformation is, which I will get into as the video continues. but it is an undercurrent of the show that we are not kind of unsure, we're not totally sure what's going on, and it does build up nicely to a nice culmination at the end. I think overall these aspects are really strong and kind of are the driving force and what I think helped me continue on watching this TV show, because the writing, the base of it was actually fairly strong and pretty like good, like a good driving force for the TV show to keep going. And I think it also leaves enough unknown to the audience that by the end of the season we are still questioning things, and it does leave more open-endedness for us to explore in further seasons if this does get renewed for a second season. We're gonna go off the week, and like the strong for the world building is like this big, and the weak for the world building is like that big. So we got some time. As for the weak points in terms of the writing, I think that the individual characters themselves were very weak. Like unbelievably weak. I think that the writers spent a lot of time trying to build up this world and this mystery and really focus and harness it on Bloom, that when it came to dividing the attention to the other characters such as Aisha, Tara, Stella, and Musa, it became very why are all these girls with us? Because even in the original show, Bloom was the only one with Bloom. I haven't seen the continuation series, but like, you know, it was Bloom, Flora, Musa, Tekna, Layla, and Stella. But then when it came down to explain the other tensions the girls might be feeling in terms of their own problems from home, or their own insecurities, or their own plots to develop them as characters, it was kind of shorthanded and done as an offhand kind of scenario that made it really, like, really weak, which in turn just added unnecessary angst to the story, because these girls are sitting here like trying to figure themselves out, with Bloom kind of being the figurehead of this angst, trying to figure herself out, and it's just like we had maybe like 5 or 10 minutes to really understand what their individual problems were in comparison to Bloom's overall problem, that it was just a lot of like unnecessary angst, which like I get it. It's supposed to be like an angsty dark show, but like when you're not giving your characters enough screen time to develop that angst and you're just gonna kind of wrap it up and explain it in like 5 minutes, not the best way to necessarily get us rooting for these characters, at least for me. Another weak point for me, writing-wise, was the relationships, whether it's familial, platonic, or romantic. For a lot of the familial relationships, there's a lot of tension with literally everyone. Like, no one on this TV show has a healthy relationship with their parents, even if they advertise it as a healthy relationship with their parents. Which, like, I get it, you're angsty, you're teeny, and you're like, teeny bopper self is like, it's like, meh. But like, again, when it's too much angst, you're just like, oh, why do I care about this? It's just an overload of like these negative emotions on top of a really kind of dark and negative show, and it doesn't make a lot of sense for you to continue to pile it on just for the sake of it, and making it really separate that, really add that strong separation to be like, these are the adults and these are the kids, and you can tell why, because they're just not getting along. Now, for the romantic relationships, I like a good love triangle. I truly do. I think that if you can write a love triangle well and explore every aspect of a certain triangle, it works out wonderfully. But this was not it. In terms of the love triangle, we got to see, everyone knows at this point that Stella, Sky, and Bloom are in a love triangle. Stella and Sky were once in a very serious relationship, which very much exploded. And as the two of them are trying to kind of navigate their way around this, Sky picks up an interest in Bloom, which causes tension in the house. I'll get more into the platonic relationships later, but for this romantic relationship, it did not work. Primarily because we don't understand why Sky would continue to go back to Stella when it is very apparent that they have a very codependent and kind of toxic relationship at best, which Stella even says herself toward the end of the series. So it's not news. However, given the mystery and the angst with Stella's own background leading up to their eventual breakup in this past, before the series aired, like pre-series, it doesn't seem like there was a lot of positive aspects of this relationship either. So it really was just like very one-sided and very much like you're in here for the comfort, but as an audience member, we don't get to see that development as to why they want to be with each other. Like, even if, like, say you are kind of toxic and codependent, you want the audience to know why you keep returning to each other, and the concept of just familiarity. sure, isn't enough, because then we're kind of left with a lot of questions and a lot of like, why is this the way that it is? Why do they keep going back to each other? Why should we even care that they were a thing when we all know who the end game is in the scenario? So it really did not make sense for this love triangle. It was not written very well, and it was just a way to really just make things awkward with Bloom and Sky as they're kind of developing a friendship slash potentially something more, and Bloom and Stella, who are literally sweet mates and have to see the other girl flirt or be with the guy that they're currently crushing on. It was, like I said, unnecessary angst, and it was just like very heavy-handed. Moving on to the platonic relationships of this scenario, I get it. I understand that girl power cannot be present in every single situation, and like even in real life, you're not gonna get along with every single girl that you meet in contact with. Like, it's just not a thing. However, this is the only thing that I will compare it to the original TV show and be angry about on camera, is that the cornerstone of the original Winx Club was the sense of girl power. Like, these girls have vastly different personalities, different interests, and you can see them butt heads a lot in the TV show or like the animated series, but at the end of the day, their love for each other and their friendship matters more than anything else that could have shown. And like, I get that they're supposed to be building up this friendship, so it's not going to be like an instant bestie situation, but again, all this headbutting and all this unnecessary kind of like drama, all it did to serve to the plot was add unnecessary angst. And at this point, it's, with everything else on top of it, it's feeling very heavy-handed and kind of fanficky with how much angst you can pile into a 6-episode season. Like, your show's filled with so much angst already, so like, why can't these characters have one positive thing, which is this very strong friendship from the get-go? Or at least a budding strong friendship from the get-go. I don't get why we have to have so many different ways that this show can go wrong, or the friendships can go wrong, primarily just for the heck of it. Like, it just felt really weak to me and kind of like weak writing, and like I said, very heavy-handed. So at the end of the day, like, I would not want to read a book like this. Another weak point was actually like the build up to certain things. Like, there is a fight scene. There's supposed to be like this big battle that happens toward the end of the season, and it felt very like Battle of Hogwarts. Like, it's building up and you know things are gonna go down, people are gonna die. Like, the mood is very tense, and then when it comes to it, the monsters find themselves searching for something else that was in the room, but then had then left the room. So literally that battle just turned into some monsters dropping down from the ceiling and then shoving some students aside and then running off. Like, if you're gonna build up this scenario where people are gonna get attacked and people are gonna die, and it's like something that they had been trying to prepare these students for so long, and then that's your result, it's not only anticlimactic, but it's just like, what the fuck is this? Like, why did I get emotionally invested? Why did I put my time and effort into this if this is the end result that I'm not only not expecting, but then also was not worth the amount of energy I placed into seeing how everyone was going to react to having to battle these monsters and battle the scenario and everything else. It was a lot for no reason. The other one is more of a visual aspect, which like doesn't make much sense for a writer, but like in terms of like your descriptions, if you're gonna have a transformation sequence and build it up, it should pay off. Like, either if you're doing it on a TV show, it should pay off visually. If you're doing it on a book, the description should pay off toward that build up. Bloom's transformation sequence, which I'm sure you guys have seen on TikTok and probably on like Twitter, not it. I wouldn't call adding wings, that's adding wings, I guess, I don't know. Adding wings a transformation, especially since a transformation implies some, especially like the build-up that they had, the sequence to it with like the music and the fire floating around her, was just like, what? Only for her to get wings? And then it's like, oh, this is ancient magic, and I'm like, I'm sitting here expecting them to do like a full Ben 10. What is like, it's the species that Gwen is in the Ben 10 when they're teenagers, where she like can like shift off her skin and like be like an alien. And I was kind of expecting that just because it's like, it's a darker movie. I'm not expecting her to pop out and like glitter, but I was expecting it to kind of reflect how dark the beasts were in comparison to the fairies were supposed to be good. I was expecting some kind of like actual physical change that didn't involve fiery wings. She literally looked like a weird avenging angel, and I didn't get it. Now, moving on to the third part, which I feel like is probably obvious after like I explained the things that were weak, to explain what the show could have done to make it a little stronger and like probably give it like that Charmed and like the Chilling Adventure of Sabrina kind of like gravity with this like retelling or reboot. Because like these two shows, the only problem that I have problems with Charmed, primarily from the marketing aspect and then like how the certain choices for certain characters, but like with Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, they did everything really well in terms of marketing and separating it from the original nostalgia while also still managing to carry that said nostalgia to drag those fans to watch it. So like I feel like the writing in the first season was like exceptional. So I think this is what the Faith writers can do to make potentially season 2 a little stronger in terms of like what they might have been lacking. Cut back on the angst. Cut back. I don't want to see it. It's a lot, and it's very obvious and very telling that adults had written this not having known what it's like to be a teenager again for at least like 20-something years. Like, you guys need to cut back on the angst. I get it, teenagers are angsty. I get it, you read a lot. It's very apparent in fan fiction when you write it and when you read it, but like in terms of like the gravity of the plot and the individual characters themselves, adding too much angst really messes with the ability to connect with the characters, because then all you're doing is expecting angst and you're not expecting characters that you can actually empathize with and connect. You're just seeing a bunch of teenagers be teenagers, which isn't a bad thing, but then when you realize it's a fantasy show, what? Give things with a huge build-up that actual resolution. Like me sitting here having to watch that awkward sequence of Abigail Cohen being like lifted into the air with like a Jesus kind of cross style thing, and like the fire looping around her and the magic swirling around her only to get wings. What? That's not the build-up that everyone was kind of hoping for, who sat there and was like, there's no transformation, you're gonna throw a transformation. A single transformation in their faces, and it's not even like an impactful one, because all you really did was add wings, which you could have done with a simpler transformation sequence with like wings growing out of her back. Then the next one is, I think that this kind of suffers from a lack of screen time. I think if you had given this show probably like 4 more episodes, you probably would have seen more character development, and you would have been able to connect it a little bit better and develop the characters outside of their own little angst and their own little bubbles, and make it easier for them to see the world around them and build those friendships. Like, it's a lot, and I don't understand it, and I needed more of the individual characters, because at the end of the day, while this is driven by plot, this is driven through Bloom's character growing and shifting, which means the people around her will also inevitably grow and shift and transform in their own way, which means that we need to see these resolutions, and in order for us to see these resolutions come through, we need the character development that comes with it. And that, I felt like, was just very lacking. Like, I feel like at the end of the day, each character made very small progressions to like where they need to be to make the second season a stronger one. Overall though, like as a person who enjoyed the show, begrudgingly she says, I liked it. I think it does need to grow a lot more in order for you to be a successful show, in order for you to ride on the coattails of the success that the animated series had. But like, with how it stands, the characters are very weak, and I can see that has been an issue from what I have seen on TikTok and Twitter. The characters being written so poorly has been so weak and so heavy-handed with the angst that it has kind of, I felt like, ruined the gravity and the audience's ability to connect with their character. And because of that, as much as I would like to see what else happens in season 2, I can see this show kind of struggling to get a season 2 because of the negative things that everyone has said about it. But like, if you separate them, the animated series, from the live action reboot, and I mean reboot, not that bad. I think the reboot stands on its own fairly okay. Like I said, the characters need a lot of work, but like when you compare them, you're not going to get the same situation. But if you see them separately on their own, like a lot of people did with Sabrina the Teenage Witch and Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, makes it a lot easier for you to actually sit down and enjoy the series. these writers need to know how to actually write characters before second season can happen, because this was like a weak attempt at trying to make them seem relatable and kind of feed on that weird teenage feeling that you don't fit in and that you don't feel like you're part of like your peers for a reason, because that's a lot of like what YA tends to write on, is that like that weird feeling the teenagers get where they don't belong. So like in order for you to get that down, you'll need to do better with the characters, because just telling me that a character's a perfectionist, someone lost her mom so she doesn't want to feel things, someone doesn't really feel like she doesn't really like empathize with her peers very well, and the other one has mommy issues, is very vague, and it's just very difficult to connect to. But that is it for this video, the first in the series. So if you guys have any books or TV shows or movies that you want me to consume and marathon, we're still in quarantine, so I'll happily accept anything to marathon and kind of analyze as like a writer. Please let me know down below. But until next time, hit like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you guys in my next video. And if you guys want to suggest anything to me, all social media links will be in my description. But until next time, bye.